You're listening to Bernadette Gold Unfiltered, which means you're ready for a new level in business, health, and life. Hit subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. No filter, no fluff. Let's go. I want to talk about something today that the personal development world gets almost completely wrong: visibility. Specifically, why smart, talented, gifted people with real things to say and real value to offer keep themselves hidden. Not because they don't want to be seen, because they're afraid of what happens when they are. And I'm not going to give you the standard coaching answer about imposter syndrome or perfectionism or not feeling ready yet. I'm going to tell you the truth. The visibility freeze is a survival response, and it was installed before you had any say in the matter. And for many people that are listening right now, it was there for a good reason. So let me start with my own story. I grew up in a household where winning was complicated. I was in dance and gymnastics. I was good. I was promoted. I placed in events. But every time that happened, there wasn't a celebration because my stepsister wasn't being promoted and my stepmom was watching. And she made sure I knew exactly what my success and achievements was costing the people around me. So I learned very early being seen was actually something to feel bad about, was something to hide or dismiss or downplay, something to manage so it didn't hurt anyone. And then there was my mother, a narcissist. And here's what I know from living inside that dynamic: the more visible you are to a narcissist, the more you become a target. I learned at a young age, you can't hit a moving target. So I stayed small, I stayed hidden. I was always 10 steps ahead. I kept moving, I kept producing. And from the outside, it looked like I had good work ethic and ambition, drive. But on the inside, it was a survival strategy. Keep moving so they can't catch you. Keep producing so they can't criticize you. Stay just visible enough to function, but never visible enough to become a target. I know that story is not mine alone because I've sat with hundreds of people who run that exact same program in their businesses, in their relationships, everywhere in their lives. It's like the person who posts and then goes quiet after getting too much attention online, who maybe someone who launches and then pulls back, who gets seen, really seen, and then unconsciously does something to become unseen again. It's not laziness or procrastination, lack of motivation or discipline. It's not even imposter syndrome. That's the thermostat controlling a visibility level that feels safe. And every time the temperature rises above that level, like I said in the last episode, the system kicks in and brings it back down. Now, let me talk about where that set point came from, because it's different for different people, but the root is usually the same. And this is going to be different than what I talked about in the last episode. and some of it's going to be a little touchy. For some people, it's the childhood message that you don't deserve recognition until or unless you're perfect, unless you're first, unless you have earned it beyond any possible doubt. For others, it's what I lived. The message that your visibility hurts the people around you, that your light makes someone else feel bad, feel dark, and that shrinking yourself is an act of love. For the people pleasers, and there are many of you listening, you learned that when attention came, it was always followed by something else. More responsibility, higher expectation, punishment for not living up to the image that the attention created. So you learned deeply, physically learned, that being seen was not a gift. It was a setup. But let's talk about something even bigger. Because the visibility freeze, it's not just personal, it's cultural, it's historical, it's political. And if we don't name that, I'm only telling half the story. Again, I'm an Asian woman raised inside of a culture that didn't celebrate women who were leaders, women who spoke, who took up space. In Asian culture, in many religious cultures, women were taught that visibility, not their place, that leading was not their role, that wanting to be seen was selfish and arrogant and unbecoming. We were treated as second-class citizens with fewer rights, less authority, less permission to exist loudly. And those things, those generational programs, they don't disappear just because you decided that you're not going to live like that and you're going to break them. Your body still knows. The memories are still there. And it's trying to protect you. Now, I want to speak directly to the LGBTQ community because the visibility freeze for you is not a mindset issue. It's a response to actual documented present tense danger. You were told by your family, by your churches, by your government to hide who you are. And the cost of being visible, of being fully, authentically seen, has been real. Jobs lost, families severed, safety threatened, and rights stripped. And right now, in this political moment, states are actively overturning marriage equality. Transgender rights are being dismantled. People are being told that who they are and who they love is not permitted. The visibility freeze for this community is not irrational. It's a rational response to a world that has repeatedly punished you for showing up. And I want to say something to every person of color, every minority, every person who has been told by society, not just by family, to make themselves smaller, quieter, and less visible. Even the disabled, the autistic, the sensitive ones. I see you. I know that what you're navigating is not just a program to be coached away in a weekend workshop. It's layered. It's real and it deserves to be honored, not dismissed. And I don't want the men listening to think this conversation is not for them, because the visibility freeze shows up differently for men, but it's just as real. Because men were taught to be stoic, to hide what they feel, to perform strength even when they're falling apart, to never cry and never ask for help, to never admit that something's hard. That's not strength. That's a mask. And the mask creates its own version of the visibility freeze. The man who shows up everywhere at work, in the room, on the platform, but nobody actually sees him. Because he learned so early to perform the version of himself that was acceptable. He did it so well that he forgot there was a real version underneath. And now we have generations of men carrying emotions and enormous amounts of stress, grief, confusion, fear, with no outlet, no permission to feel it, no language to name it, no safe place to put it down. But it goes somewhere. It goes into your body, the business, your relationships, into the ceiling that keeps appearing no matter how hard you push. Visibility for men. It's not about being seen by others. It's about being seen by yourself. And that is where all the work begins. But let me talk about the false humility trap. Because for those of you who grew up in the church or in deeply religious households, there is another layer to this. I told you I'm a bit heretical, right? You were taught that wanting to be seen is vanity, that desiring recognition is arrogance, that a truly good person makes themselves small, that give without taking, they serve without asking to be acknowledged. And you internalized it so deeply that even now, when you've built something real, when you have something genuinely worth sharing, there's a voice that says, who are you to promote this? Who do you think you are? Who are you to ask people to pay attention? Who are you to take up this much space? That voice isn't humility. It's a program dressed up as virtue. Real humility is not about invisibility. Real humility is showing up fully with everything you have and offering it in service of something bigger than yourself. There's nothing humble about withholding your gifts from the people who need them. And I'm going to say this because it genuinely makes me angry. The silence of the powerful. We've watched it in real time. ICE raids, illegal detentions, U.S. citizens being killed for protesting, the Epstein files, war crimes, governments profiting from the offices they hold, and the people with the biggest platforms, the celebrities, the influencers, the public figures with millions of followers, and the financial insulation to speak without consequence have largely gone quiet. Their silence is deafening. And to the public, it's tone deaf. Because here's what that silence teaches every person watching. If even the powerful are too afraid to speak, why would I be safe? And I understand the coaching advice about don't get political, stay in the middle lane, don't speak your truth, remain politically correct, don't make people uncomfortable. I've been told that. I want to clearly say That advice was never about protecting you or me. It was about protecting the fortunes and the brands behind those fortunes. Speaking your truth is not the same as being divisive. Naming what's happening is not the same as being political. And remaining silent while people are being hurt, it's not neutrality. That's a choice. Now back to you, the ones who've been hiding. Not because you're lazy or you're not ready or because you're not good enough and your work isn't good enough, but because somewhere along the way, your family, your culture, your body, the world taught you that being seen was dangerous. I know that fear is real. I lived it. And I spent years staying small, hidden, staying ahead of the curve. I kept myself moving, producing, so that I could function without becoming a target. But I also know this: you can't be invisible and successful at the same time. Not because success requires performing for an algorithm, and not because you have to share every detail of your life online and be as transparent as someone like me. Not because visibility means sacrificing your privacy or your safety or your boundaries, but because the people who need what you have can't find you when you refuse to show up and be visible. Your silence isn't protecting them, it's withholding from them. And every day you stay hidden, someone who needed your voice, your work, your perspective, your presence finds someone else. Someone with maybe less to offer, but someone who's just willing to show up. You have something to get out into the world. But how's the world going to know it's there if you're too afraid to show up and be seen? Visibility is not vanity, not arrogance. It's not selfish. For those of you who've been told to hide by your families and cultures and governments and people who benefited from your silence, showing up fully is an act of resistance. And it's the most powerful thing you can do in a world that told you to disappear. Here's the question I want you to sit with before episode 8. What would you say, create, build, or become if you knew that being seen was finally, completely, permanently safe? I'll see you in episode 8. Oh, and one more thing before I go. I know this episode ran longer than the others, but seriously, some rules, even arbitrary ones, can be broken for the sake of honoring what actually matters. This is Bernadette Gold, Unfiltered.